You know, I know a couple of women that come to mind, not in this congregation, but they read these verses, and you know what they conclude? They conclude, oh, I guess I can't wear makeup. And these women do not wear makeup. They have never cut their hair. They just let it grow. They never cut it. All they do is it's always straight and it's very, very long. They never wear any fancy clothing, never any jewelry. But you know what? That's not what Peter's saying here. You, ladies, I assure you, you can wear jewelry. You can go to the beauty parlor if you want. You know, it is a good thing to pay attention to your external appearance. But his point here is spend more time on the inside. Because you know what? I don't know about you, but as I look in the mirror, I don't see that 18-year-old anymore, or even the 20-year-old anymore, or 25-year-old. It's like, wow, whatever beauty I might have had back when I was 18, man, it is long gone. All I see is hair sprouting everywhere, and gray hair, and the wrinkles and all that stuff. So that fades away. But the inner beauty, if you concentrate on the inside, that's going to get better, and it's not going to fade away. Okay? And he specifically mentions cultivating a gentle and a quiet spirit. A gentle and quiet spirit. Once again, is this what culture teaches? To be submissive to your husband? No. Does culture say, does Oprah advocate, ladies, that you should submit to your husband, that you should focus on purity and reverence, and instead of spending so much time on the outside, to focus more on the inside, about your cultivating a gentle and quiet spirit? No, we don't hear that on television. We don't read that in how-to books, do we? Remember, if we want to do things God's way, if we want a God-honoring marriage, a successful marriage, we have to do this. Okay? And again, the motivation for this specific audience, these women married to non-Christians, if you do this, you have a really great chance at your husband becoming a Christian as well. And so ladies, forget about preaching your husband. Forget about nagging him, okay? Forget about all the little signs, the little post-its on the bottom of his beer mug that says repent. Forget all that stuff. It hasn't worked yet, has it? No, of course it hasn't worked. And it's not going to work. Just show him what a godly woman looks like. Now, we've talked about a lot of details here, but overall, big picture, what is his instruction to wives? Again, we talked about a lot of detail, and there's a lot of things that you ladies have to wrestle with. I recognize that. This is not easy, all right? But the big picture is, I think he's saying, be submissive to your husband. Isn't that what he's saying, basically? Be submissive to your husband. He says that in verse 1, and I think everything he says after that sort of supports that overall point. Be submissive to your husband. And again, why? Well, because if you concentrate on submitting to his authority in the family, again, that's how God designed it. That's your role as a wife, to support your husband, okay? And you might be able to help him come to Christ by without ever opening your words, by your purity, by your reverence, by cultivating this gentle and quiet spirit. So very, very challenging, I recognize it, ladies, but be submissive to your husbands. Okay? So that's the instructions to the wives. And then, of course, he does have instructions to husbands as well. And what you're going to notice right off the bat is the ladies, there were several verses of instructions, but with the guys, there's one. Okay? And I don't know about you, but immediately I ask the question, well, why is that? And the quick answer is, we don't know. Okay? There is no explanation here. But if you want my speculation, my best guess, my guess is based on what he says here. My hunch, and I can't back this up, is I think that apparently women that he is writing to here, Christian women, there's a lot of them apparently who are not married to Christians. And they perhaps have this attitude, well, I know if he was a Christian I'd have to submit to him and do all this stuff, but he's not even a Christian, so I don't have to submit. And that's why I think he spends so much time talking to women here versus men. But again, that's pure speculation. The reality is I don't know. But here is, guys, your one verse in chapter 7. Here are instructions for husbands. Here we go. He says, husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. Now, summarizing verse 7 is really pretty easy. I mean, I think it's pretty clear, isn't it? So if you're taking notes, here it is. I would just say, husbands, be considerate and respectful of your wife. Husbands, you need to be considerate and respectful of your wife. Now that word considerate can also be translated be understanding. I think the general idea of that Greek word is just basically, guys, we need to pay attention to our wives. It's not all about us. It's about them. Our responsibility is to take care of our wives. Be aware of what they need. Be aware of their dreams and their hopes. Be aware of their moods. Just be considerate of them. Be understanding. Have a clue about what makes your wife tick, what makes her happy, what gives her joy, what makes her feel better and more secure. Just be considerate of her. Be understanding. And then the second is to treat her with respect. And as I read this in context, and obviously I'm a guy, so I look at it from a guy's standpoint, but I suspect it has to do with this idea, that the guys, we might sort of, get a little puffed up. Oh, I'm the head of the family, Well, let's remind ourselves, gentlemen, that our wives are our partners. They're not inferior in any way. They are not inferior in any way, no matter how you measure it. Now, he does say that they're the weaker partner, but I tend to think that has to do with physical strength. Generally speaking, men are stronger physically than women. But otherwise, we are total equal. And guys, I don't know how else to say this, except the only reason you are the head of your house is not because you're so great, you're so smart, you're so handsome, you're so strong. The only reason you're the head of the house is because God said all men will be head of their house. Okay? So, treat your wives with respect. Be considerate and be respectful of them. And if we were to put all this stuff together, you've got the instructions to wives, be submissive to your husbands, particularly if your husband is not a follower of Jesus, okay, but be submissive to your husbands. And then the instructions to the husbands to be considerate and respectful of your wives. You put it all together, and you know what? I think the bottom line for today, the overriding message that he wants to communicate here is to be what God has called you to be. That is the bottom line. To be what God has called you to be. Again, if you're a wife, what are we talking about here? You are to submit to your husband. And again, if your husband is not a Christian, you might win him to Christ with your purity and with your reverence. You might win your husband over without ever opening your mouth, by just submitting to his authority, by being a godly woman, by cultivating a gentle and quiet spirit. And by the way, I forgot to note this, but the gentle and quiet spirit, that's of great value. It's of great worth to God. Great worth. You want to make God happy, ladies? Cultivate a gentle and quiet spirit. Be what God has called you to be. In terms of guys, well, what are you called to be? Well, yes, you are called to be the leader of the home, but specifically to be considerate. Have a clue about your wife. Her needs are more important than your needs. Your world should not revolve around you. Your wife should be the world. And meeting her needs should be your highest priority, not meeting your needs. Be considerate of her. Be understanding of her. I'll tell you what, guys, if you do that, and if you treat your wives with respect, I guarantee it, they'll be much more apt to submit to your headship in the family. Think about it. Wouldn't you like to be treated that way? Yeah. With consideration, understanding, and respect. Yeah. Be what God has called you to be. And so, do you want a God-honoring marriage? And the answer is yes, we have to do things God's way, not our way. We have to be what God has called us to be. And if we want not just a good marriage, not even a very good marriage, if you want a great marriage, we have to do things God's way. And God's way is we have to be what God has called